So we're going to go into the next module, which is some of the, again, same themes as the previous, right? Themes of incentives and what happens when you introduce perverse incentives. The food lie, how calories replace nutrients. And it's a similar kind of story here, okay? And I'm going to show you with data, facts, and statistics and show you the trends. So the first thing we need to grapple with, think about this. In the 1900s, obesity, less than 1%. Today, 43%. Think about that. Think about that. Think about this astronomical change in human physiology, right? Think about the immiseration and the suffering that this kind of creates. What's the factors behind it? If we're building on the incentive structures, if we're building on this concept of how there was a monopoly capitalistic takeover like human health and physiology. What happens is that wellness, human health becomes captured by what we call nutrition science, yeah, funded by industry. Companies like Procter and Gamble, the sugar lobby, Ansel Keys' research. The incentive structure that's introduced is towards extension of shelf life, right, rather than cell life and vitality. So what you have, and in this in the documentaries I've linked here, yeah, there's a very interesting. It's disturbing, but what happens is you have this concept of the food pyramid, and in the documentary, Dr. Mark Hyman says it may as well be called the food tombstone. That's brutal. Because I've got a sick British sense of humor, I find that so funny. But it's not funny actually. It's actually quite disgusting. Yeah. So what happens is things like seed oils, preservatives, refined sugars are introduced at scale. And what these things do is they destroy DHA and redox potential, right? So the mitochondria that make humans great, that make them capable, that make them vital, that make them able to achieve and perform and do all these amazing things that we're trying to do here in the Breakthrough Engine, they're destroyed by this, amongst other things too, right? So therefore, what you have is these distraction metrics that begin to emerge, right? And lenses which are incredibly inappropriate to use to look into reality. Yeah, and these become the norm. These that become paradigms, and these become how we just look into the world. Accepted wisdom, right? When something has become common sense, like the amount of like institutional brainwashing that has to take place, the amount of like infrastructure that has to be built, the amount of like resources and like architecture that has to be placed for something to become, if you like, common sense is really interesting when you begin to unpack it, right? And why we believe what we believe. And there was a great course that Noam Chomsky used to teach in Massachusetts Institute of Technology about it's political philosophy and how we learn and how we understand the world. And when we look at when you follow the money, you start to unravel how these things are driven by incentive. You see how divorced from nature it really becomes. And I'm giving you data, facts, and statistics here. I'm not exactly happy about this. This is disgusting. Think about the immiseration and suffering it creates, but then equally, right? Markets, if you like, they're not moral. They aren't intended to be. They are just a brute fact. They're just a law of the universe. They are what they are. There's no good. There's no bad. There's no truth. There's no lie or misconception. They just are what they are. They're an amoral entity, and they just respond to incentives. Yeah. So what you need to do is to observe this and understand what it means for you. Okay. The frames, the prism, the distorting lens of things like calories, all this like, bullshit way to look at reality, right? is fundamentally disconnected from nature and what builds human potential. Okay, so the change and the shift that I need to drive to you, of those of you who follow my stuff and my research and look at the breakthrough engine, nature builds from life, right? It builds from sunlight and minerals, right? Not barcodes and shelf life and macros and all this fucking bullshit that doesn't matter, that isn't even real. It's a concocted uh, tool to monetize monetize these things. This is largely, well, it is what it is, and you can believe that or not. It doesn't actually matter to me. But what does matter to me is that you review the facts, review the data, review the trends yourself independently of me or people like me, and yourself decide if it benefits you or if it doesn't. Because ultimately, your best thinking gets you where you are, and you are a byproduct of the principles and paradigms and ideas that you've got, and you won't get beyond what your paradigms are. None of us can. I'm still on a journey myself with that. But this slide, right? It should shock you. The book here, Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer. That's a brilliant, brilliant, very accessible read. And what I love about Dr. Chris Palmer, I mean, he's a very reputable, like, Harvard-trained psychiatrist, and he's put all this research together. It's a relatively recent book. I've been talking about these things for 14 years, right? A long time. And I had to come to this stuff myself when other things weren't working. I had to figure this out myself. But what Dr. Chris has done, he's made it really accessible. And he's doing really brilliant work, and I can respect that, right? It's really well worth your time to review that. If you get an audiobook or whatever, it's really well worth your time because he's essentially saying the same things as me. I've got a bit of a different focus. I'm more looking at performance and stuff like that. But that's a lot of the science in that book that once you start to see like the enormous failings of the institutions and the like establishment, which Chris is from, right? He's a leading example of that. When he and people like him are being so brave to renounce that and to say, no, no, guys, we got it wrong. I think that's just an incredibly, but those are elements of the greatness of the human animal. But when folks like him are so brave to do that, I think that's so deeply admirable. And yeah, that is well worth your time to review. I'd recommend that. And other resources I put in this. These two documentaries, they're going to be good to you to check out, and you'll understand. Right, but again, the whole purpose of these educational modules is not for me to tell you what to do. It's not that at all. It's just data, facts, and statistics. And I'm presenting an overall picture here that is only intended for one thing, to get you to engage with it, because this is real, right? And then what you do with that is your choice. And I don't mind what you do with that. But what I do mind about is that you make a well-informed decision, right? And the research is here. So the actions for this module are go. I would recommend you watch, or I've got some of the stuff. These documentaries, they're very interesting and engaging. And then Dr. Chris Palmer's book is well worth a read. Really, really good. And once you've done that, you can go to the next module, which is about tech. All right. See you soon.